Good evening, everybody. My responsibilities is to be the moderator and to ask the questions, but first I get the honor of introducing Frank Bellotti, who is the managing partner and co-founder of EchoCorp. Prior to starting EchoCorp, Frank was the founder and chairman and CEO of AFC Enterprises. AFC owned and operated franchise restaurant brands to include Church's, Popeyes, Cinnabon, Seattle Best Coffee, Chesapeake Bay, and Torfenzio Italia in over 30 countries. Frank is a director, chairman of the Corporate Governance Committee, and member of the Management Development and Compensation Committee at Radio Shack Corporation, and is a founding member of Hank Aaron's Chasing the Dream Foundation Board of Directors. He serves in an advisory capacity to 3 private equity firms, as well as the Georgia Power Company, the Business Advisory Council of this university, and is a lifetime member and former chairman of the Carter Center Board of Counselors in Georgia. Frank has been awarded the restaurant industry's highest award as the Operator of the Year, has received recognition in his efforts to help achieve social justice by the Anti-Defamation League, the NAACP, the Urban League, and is the recipient of the President Award for Social Reform. We're also very happy that he is in his 5th year as an adjunct professor at Gigot Center of Studies and Mendoza College of Business. Frank is a Notre Dame graduate and has his MBA from Fordham University. Frank has been a very close friend of Henry's since 1985, when the two met in New York at the office of Major League Baseball with a shared dream to help bring opportunities to the disenfranchised. Frank Bellotti.
Okay, can you hear me? Good. Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight with you and with Henry. Those of you who know me know that I like to tell stories. So this is a story about 2 men who were risk takers at heart. They did what they did not because they were entrepreneurs, but they became entrepreneurs with success and over time. Peter Drucker, who's the self-described social ecologist, once said that the behavior of the entrepreneur reflects the kind of person willing to put his or her career and financial security on the line and take risks in the name of an idea. I'd like to add the word ideal. To take risks in the name of an idea and an ideal. For 23 years, Hank plied his trade on the baseball field. 755 home runs, 2,297 runs batted in, 3,771 hits, 2,174 runs scored, 1,477 extra base hits, 24 All-Star games, 12 Major League records in all. And Hank bore the burden of the torch that was passed to him by Jackie Robinson, and he opened new doors for black ball players, not only to play the game, but to manage at the highest level along the way. He also chased down the greatest record in all of sports, defying death threats and history, surpassing Babe Ruth's home run record. But he wasn't finished there. In 1985, Hank went all in, and he began his second career as a businessman. Hank became my partner, and we went on to open restaurants and car dealerships for 10 different companies and brands. not only in name, but Hank actually worked in the restaurants, and he worked at the dealerships, and he continued to open doors for many aspiring entrepreneurs. But he wasn't finished yet. Creating jobs and ownership opportunities was a good way to parlay his success, but what about tomorrow? In 1994, we formed Chasing the Dream Foundation to inspire and support young risk-takers to pursue their dreams. And since that day, Chasing the Dream has supported 755 dream chasers, one for each of Hank's home runs. And then we endowed a program called 44 Forever, which allows us, through the auspices of the Boys and Girls Club, to support 44 dream chasers every year in perpetuity. And finally, 3 years ago, we announced the $5 million effort called 4 for 4, which awards 4-year scholarships to 4 students every year at 12 universities, also in perpetuity. Hank was fond of saying that I liked hitting home runs because I knew that each one made a difference. It left nothing to chance. Runs affected games. Games affected seasons, and seasons affected careers. And in my own way, I liked the sustainability of ventures that created jobs. In our 23 seasons together, on average, we opened 1 restaurant every day, creating over 5,000 business entities, 500 new business owners, many of whom were minorities and women, 50,000 jobs. We created 1,000 new shareholders, and we housed over 2,000 children in 12 countries in the nearly 500 homes that we built. Henry and I have made it our life's work to focus on the disenfranchised. And along the way, I suppose we became social entrepreneurs. I hope that the format tonight will give you some insight in how it all happened, why it was so important to us, and why, perhaps, it should be important to you. I'd like to say that, by way of introduction, his name is synonymous with greatness. In 2002, Henry Aaron joined the ranks of Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Father Theodore Hesburgh, Neil Armstrong, Jonas Salk, 2 popes, 2 Supreme Court justices, 5 former presidents, and his colleagues Jackie Robinson, Ted Williams, and Joe DiMaggio when he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, our nation's highest civilian award. In 1982, Hank was inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame and is considered one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century. The recipient of a Notre Dame honorary doctorate in the class of 2005. Please welcome my friend, Henry Aaron. We're just going to answer questions.
Thanks very much, Frank.
You're welcome.
You think they're close friends? Think they're close friends. Henry, what does the term chasing the dream mean?
Well, I think in some ways.
We got this on?
Oh, no, I don't. I'm sorry. It's my no. Now, can you? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was your question?
What does the term chasing the dream mean?
Well, first, I think in some ways Frank kind of gave you an indication of what it means to me. 23 years after playing professional baseball, I remember, if I can, I remember my last game in Milwaukee County Stadium. And I remember Bud Selig, who is now the commissioner of baseball. He owned the ball club, came to me and he said, Hank, he said, I understand that you're thinking about retiring. I said, yes, Bud. I said, I've played 23 years. I don't have anything else I can give baseball. I've given it everything that I had for 23 years, and it's time for me to go do something else. And he said, well, we want to give you a night. We want to honor you. I said, that's fine, Bud. I said, but I don't really want anything. I said, I don't need an automobile. I said, I don't want somebody giving me a truckload of Coca-Cola or Cokes or something like that. And I said, I don't want clothes. I don't need anything. I said, I just want to just pretend like I've had a great career and it's over with, you know. He said, well, let's think of something. So I went home and I thought my wife and I got together and we both got together and we started talking about what it is that I wanted to be remembered for. And we started thinking about 755. You hit 755 home runs. Why don't you try and say, you know, you chased your dream many years. Now, why don't you try and help someone else chase their dream? And so that's why we named it Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation. That's what it means to me, is to me to help other children or help someone else chase their dream. Because coming from a little isolated city in Mobile, Alabama, from 8 kids, I remember so well that I chased my dream. And it was a dream when I was chasing at the time, because there were no blacks in baseball. I think Jackie Robinson had not made it to the big leagues. And I was chasing a dream. I wanted to play baseball badly. And so I decided that after I retired from baseball, that I was going to do everything I could to help some child or somebody chase their dream in order to be able to say one day that Hank Aaron did something to help me.
Has it changed over the years?
Is you talking about baseball?
No, the chasing the dream.
It has changed, yes. I've seen, we've got kids all over the United States. We have 755 kids. We have them all over. We have them in politics. And this is just not for baseball. This is dancing, this is theater, this is most anything, you know. And we have them all over, you know. And kids are able to do things that they probably would not be able to do.
When did you realize that you had become a role model for young players coming up in the majors?
I don't know, and I take that I take role models. You know, role models is something that I think that we all have to analyze and think about, because as I stated today, we got to be very, very careful about who we analyze and think about role models, because if I can share a story with you, and I think I shared this story with some of you kids, somebody today, and if I can just tell, I remember when I retired from baseball, I went to work with Magnavox. And Magnavox make the television sets. And I remember I was in a little city called Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I remember just like this was an audience, and I saw, it was a kid that was sitting in the front row. And this kid was an avid, he wanted to play he wanted to play football. And he weighed about 220, 230. And he was being recruited by several colleges all over the world. And so he decided he was going to go to one of the colleges. I don't care to name the school. So anyhow, he got to recruit. He got a chance to go there and get take a physical. And when he was taking his physical, the doctor looked in his lips, and he saw these little bubbles in his lip, and he told him that he had to stop dipping snuff. That's what they call it. It was Skoal snuff at the time. And he said, I can't stop, doctor. He said, because Walt Garrison, I'm sure I'm calling a name out that most of you probably don't know, but Walt Garrison was a football player that played with, I believe, played with the Dallas Cowboys, or one of the Texas teams, and he had made a commercial with Skoal snuff, a little box of snuff about that big, and kept it in his back pocket. And kids loved it. He was a very good football player. And the doctor told him, said, you got to stop dipping this snuff. So he said, I just can't. So he go back to school, finishes school, so he goes back to camp the next spring. And those same little bubbles that the doctor had told him about had turned into cancer. And less than 2 months, this kid they had cut off half his face and he died. And that's why I said we have to be very, very careful about who we talk about role models. Role models should be your mother, your father, or someone that you see every day. You know, I mean, they look at me right now and they say, Hank Aaron, he hit 755 home runs. And then they can look at, I don't care to call somebody else's name, who hit more home runs than I did. And they say, they said, did he do it right? You know, I mean, this is the thing you have to be careful about when you start talking about role models. I think you have to be careful because it's just so many things that goes into being a role model.
Is baseball just a microcosm of life? What lessons have you learned playing baseball that served you well in your life and career after baseball?
I think it has learned me how to get along with people. I think it taught me a lot of things about business. I know that in playing 162 games a year, that you have to learn how to get along with your teammates, your next door neighbor. In fact, you know, 162 games, you probably see more of your teammates than you see of your family, your wife or somebody, you know, at home. So you have to learn how to get along with it. And I think that it's taught me a lot of things how to do.
You own the most records of any professional baseball player ever. What do you think about baseball today and the players?
I think baseball players are great. I think they you know, these kids I see today, well, first of all, let me just say this. I think you walk up, most ball players when I played weighed 180 pounds. I weighed soaking wet. When I was at my best, I weighed 175 pounds. I mean, that was at my best, and I was doing everything that I could do, hit home runs. Now you walk up to somebody like Albert Pujols, and he look like he plays tight end. Somebody, you know, really, these guys are huge. They are huge. They take care of themselves. You know, they go in the gym and they know how to take care of themselves. You know, they forbid me to even look at a weight when I was coming up. They said, no, don't pick up weight because we don't want you to get strong in your arms and all that. These guys are huge, and they are great athletes too. I mean, not only in baseball, but they're great athletes in football, basketball, whatever you want to say. These kids are coming along now. It's you know, you have to say that they're a step beyond where I was when I played.
You know, this afternoon when you were with some of the coaches and some of the athletes, student athletes, you talked a little about the difference in, I think my word would be the difference in what the team is today versus maybe what the team was when you played. The feeling of team and the feeling of that feeling that you had as a teammate, and the players being all about the same versus now there's a little difference, and there's a lot of difference, in how the teams are looked upon, and the relationships within those teams. What's caused that to change, you think?
I think what has caused it to change is money. Players today make so much money until, you know, I mean, you know, and I say this not begrudging anybody because I don't have time to do that. But when I came up, you know, my first year in baseball, 162 games that I played, I made $5,000 a year. That was my salary. Nowadays, players today make over $300,000, well, close to $300,000 as a rookie, and it was almost 7 years before I ever got to making $50,000, and I was hitting well over 320-some, 30-some home runs. So, and I think that today it's a divided between not the players themselves, but I think that the agent who represent these players, because what happens is that most of the players that is represented by agents, if they sign a contract for X number of millions of dollars, he usually get his take right off the top, where some players probably try to stretch his out for so many years, but he gets his right off the top. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Your first World Series winning check was how much?
My first World Series winning check was $11,000. And I had never in my life made that kind of money in my whole baseball career. And after we beat the Yankees in 1957, I remember going to the post office maybe 8, 9 times right after the series was over with, hoping that I could get my check. And it was late. It was late coming, and and by that time I decided I was going to call the Brewers up, the Milwaukee Braves up, and find out where the check was. And they said, "Well, it's coming." So sure enough, it came the next week. So I got the check, and I carried it to the bank, put it on the counter, and the teller says, "Mr. Aaron, how would you like this money? Would you like to put it in your checking account or your savings account?" I said, "No." I said, "Don't put it in either one." I said, "What you do, you cash it, put it in a bag, give it to me, and I'm going to carry it home." And he said, "Go carry all this money?" I said, "Yes, I'm carrying $11,000 home." I carried all of the money home, and when I got home, I pulled the shades down, locked the door, made sure nobody was around, and decided I was going to count this $11,000, because I had never seen that much money in my life. And so I decided I was going to start paying bills. And so when I got through paying bills, I think at the end I had $1.35 left. That was it.
In Brian's book entitled The Last Hero, he paints a picture of Hank Aaron as an American hero. Who's your hero?
Oh, heroes. Well, in baseball, of course, you had Jackie Robinson, no question, was my hero. And politics, I better stay out of that. But yeah, I have heroes. I have a lot of people that I analyze and I guess I do most anything for and try to help. But Jackie Robinson was my hero.
This is a question for both of you. We've heard a little about how you guys met in 1985. Talk a little more about that connection and how that relationship grew over a period of time.
Well, I like to tell the story about the day that we met, because it was the only day that I've ever been mistaken for Hank Aaron. I got to the meeting room first, and apparently the woman behind the desk, not a baseball fan, she said, "Mr. Aaron, if you just walk in here, I'm sure your company would." I thought, well, I only wish. But no, we met in New York. I was actually working on a promotion with Major League Baseball, and I asked Henry to meet with me to see if he would be interested in working with me on it. And the interesting thing about our meeting was that we'd never met each other. And you try to imagine what it would be like today for an athlete going into a room and being asked to engage in a project with some businessman with no contracts, no paperwork, just the words, "Trust me." But that's essentially what I said to Henry. I don't have much else to offer other than I can tell you what we'd like to do. Please trust me. And we shook hands, and he did. And in all the years that have transpired since 1985 and all the things that we've done, that handshake is our only contract. And I like to tell the story because it says a good deal about how honorable Hank Aaron is, and it also says a lot about the power of a handshake, which I'd like to teach our students about how important it is for them to live up to their promises. If you say, "I shake your hand, I promise to do, trust me," then you have to fulfill that obligation, and you don't need a contract to be relied upon. Power of a handshake is an incredible thing.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I could go back and talk about a lot of great things that this man has done, really, and he's continued to do, he and his family. I don't know that I would be in the position that I'm in now if it was not for Frank Bellotti. I mean, he tells the story a little meekly, but he has helped so many people, really. I mean, this man has done so many great things and still doing great things, really. And he got me involved in boys and girls, not boys and girls, Big Brother, got involved in that situation. And he is, he's done so many things that today, I think I have over 30-some restaurants. And I have to say, if it had not been for him, I would not have those restaurants. And I was fortunate enough to get into the automobile business big time. And all of it comes right back to Frank Bellotti. I don't know if I've ever called him up, really, and he said no to me. I really haven't. I mean, he's been, and his wife the same way. His family. I mean, not only him, but his whole family is the same way. And so he just been someone that I've always held very high for his understanding where I'm coming from, and things he don't have to do, So, we talked about the seed, and I think we talked about to some of the kids, and the thing that I like to leave with young people, especially young people in college, is that, and we talked about it just briefly a moment ago about my success in baseball for 23 years. And I tell a lot of kids, I say, you may not ever hit a single home run. You may not ever do any of those things. But the thing that you have to remember, all of you have to remember, is that you can always be a great doctor, you can be a great lawyer, you can be a great teacher, you can be somebody great. But I'd like to leave you with one thing that you have to always remember, carry this with you, is that there is no shortcut in life. I don't care who you are, who you may be, there is no shortcut in life. And if you think there is, you're going to get yourself in some serious trouble. And I see it every single day. You can watch it on television, you can look at it anywhere, and I'm telling you, it is just no way that you may be able to go, because God didn't intend for you to do that. He brought you here for his interest. You got to crawl, you got to walk, you got to do all these things, and you got to take your time to get where you're going. And believe me, you do have time.
Frank, the two of you have been very successful in entrepreneurial opportunities, especially in the franchise restaurant business. That's a very, very competitive marketplace. How do you and Hank measure success in that environment? How would you measure that? I mean, I know that, ongoing business, 32, making some money, but I think you guys measure the success, and you touched on it a little in your introduction. How do you measure success?
Opportunities created. Yeah, I think when I finally got the opportunity to run my own company and I got to write the rule book, I decided that I would spend the time trying to create as many opportunities as possible for ownership, for employment. We tried to go out and recruit more minority and women-owned suppliers, try to create opportunity in the communities where we did business. And for every franchisee who came into the system, I insisted that they come to my office so that I could meet them face to face. I doubt if there are too many franchisors who do this, but I purposely did it because I wanted to shake their hand and make them a promise. I wanted them to make a promise to me, and I wanted to give them my home phone number, that if they should ever need me, they could call me directly. I told them, I don't suspect you're going to have to, because there's a lot of people out there who know that I give out my home phone number to every new franchisee, so they're going to work very hard to keep you from calling me, but should you need me, you can call me. And so I looked at each of them and thought about the opportunities that we were creating. And so I look at success really about opportunity generation. And I work very, very hard to build brands, to make what we do highly successful so their opportunities will be significant and sustainable. I think when Henry and I have talked about our business relationships, he often talks about how many new managers he created, how many new owners he's created, how many jobs he's created. We don't spend a lot of time talking about how much money the business is making so much as we do talking about the opportunities created. And I really do think that we have kind of a common eye from that perspective. So I think entrepreneurship in this case is really about opportunity creation.
You know, in this lecture series, we've had a number of folks in a different way say about the same thing that you just said, which is entrepreneurship is really about job creation and the ability to create new jobs and new opportunities for people who wouldn't have those opportunities. Because in some cases, a lot of the employees that you've hired are women, minorities, to help develop these businesses. Now we've got, what, 32 restaurants?
Yes, right.
And it's now become somewhat of a family business management too, because we've got Victor, a son-in-law, running those 32 stores day to day. So, but again, it's job creation thing and the opportunity of creating jobs is a driver.
Yeah, and when that opportunity presents itself, I think that we have to be prepared in order to know how to succeed. Just because, as I mentioned before, just because you run an automobile shop and someone come in to buy a car from you, you treat that person different than somebody buying a part from you. It's an opportunity that you have because it creates the environment, and that person is going to go back out and talk about how you treated them, And I insist upon especially when I had the automobile business, that all of my customers was treated the same, no matter who came in the store, And I think that's the way we need to.
Maybe the difference, Mike, in terms of opportunity generation or jobs is, we look at a franchise as a business. Each one is a business. Yes, it's a job, and yes, it may be a series of jobs, and yes, it helps improve jobs in the supply chain, but there's a high degree of sustainability in those businesses. They should go on for 20 years at a clip. It's not just a job that may come and go. And so there's a lot to be said about trying to create jobs that you believe are highly sustainable and that have an element of ownership to them. So it's beyond just going to work every day. And ownership tends to change the mindset. The reason why we started building houses is because it gave people a chance to own their own homes, and that breaks the cycle of poverty. It changes the mindset. So I think ownership is one of those key dimensions, and we're actually able to recruit people who the heretofore disenfranchised, if you will. We can give them that opportunity, where other organizations might have just simply bypassed them. But here's a chance to give them an opportunity to be, part of the social strata and the economic strata that otherwise might not have happened. So.
Well, the other day, I think you and I were chatting, and the number that you threw out, which is very impressive, is that of the franchises that you've been involved with and that have opened, that the success rate has been about 95%. Why is it so high?
Well, the term franchise is really about building a business model, and I think if you build a business model correctly, and you're very good at keeping the brand contemporary and keeping the brand competitive, then the model and the brand should yield high levels of success. And I think we tried very hard to make brands competitive and build a great business model. And we didn't put people into business just to take their fees. We put them into business so that they could succeed in the long term. So we screened them, we screened the locations, and we supported them at a very high level, because that 95% or better rate was really important to us, that they didn't get into business and then go out of business, which happens on a lot of entrepreneurial ventures where the risks are great and the failure rate is also great.
We heard in the introduction, and we've talked a little about this, the chasing the dream, but let's talk a little about the houses. Explain what you guys have done with houses and building houses, and how many, and what's going on there.
Well, when we first started the company, we realized that we're having to remodel a lot of the restaurants. They were old and they really needed a lot of reimaging. And so we felt that we had hired a lot of construction firms who were going into the communities and refurbishing these facilities. And we thought every business that I've been associated with had a social dimension. And so I said, well, I think this would be a great opportunity for us to actually go and become a partner with Habitat and build houses in these communities, because the houses aren't going to go away. They're lasting monuments to the work that the employees and the homeowners actually coming together to do this. And on a Saturday afternoon, it gave us a chance to go down and be just like every other employee in the company. And you couldn't tell the difference of who was who. You go out and build a house, and the house meant an awful lot to us. And so we thought if we could do a good job of that, we set a goal of building 100. And then we went to the inauguration in '92, and I kind of walked away and said, gee, we were just thinking too small. Let's do 200. And 200 led to 300, and 300 led to 400, and 400 led to 500. And then we started building houses around the world. And nothing gave our corporation more spirit than that. That was our soul. And it became part of our essence and who we were. And so we counted, last count, we had over 2,000 children that we had housed. And it makes going to work feel good.
So what drives you to be so active and supportive in these communities? Where is it? And I think you said it earlier today, but where is it?
I think that the success that one have, especially I look at my situation, having been able to play baseball for 23 years, I feel like I was blessed in more ways than one. Pardon me, in more ways than one. So I felt like, I need to restore blessings upon somebody else if God has given me the opportunity to do that. We talk about, we all talk about how much we can achieve in our lifetime, in the form of money and et cetera. But, what we have to remember is that I think those that give back, is the one that's going to be blessed. I think we look at each other by looking at the blessings in which we can bestow upon other people. Really, it's hard. It's hard for me to sit here and say, Hank, you hit 755 home runs and you led the league in runs batted in. But then I look around and I say, there were teammates of mine too that was on base when I hit those home runs. And then I look at the success that I've had with the restaurants. It wasn't my only doing, it was people like this, and that was a blessing that God put upon me simply because I had, bestowed blessings with other people, So all of these things you have to look at is that, no matter how much we achieve in life, we can only drive one car, and I said this once before, we can only drive one car, live in one house, take one vacation, and we can't spend but so much, and we have to let other people enjoy some of the fruit of life.
It's part of the class that Melissa and I teach here. This microventuring is really about poverty alleviation in trying to teach our students to become advisors and mentors to micro-entrepreneurs around the world in the hopes that we can help very small entrepreneurs become successful by guiding them in the businesses that they should choose and advising them on how to start them and grow them. And in essence, we keep talking about this kind of disenfranchised lot. But, Hank and I often said a lot of the people kind of up in the pyramid, they get all kinds of help. There's a lot of people who don't get a lot of help. But they're very important people. Hank likes to talk about, everybody gets treated the same, everybody's important. So if we can get this tier of the pyramid to become successful, if they can start businesses or sustain businesses, if they can become self-sufficient, they become part of the economic fabric. They're no longer a drain on society, they're a contribution to society. We get a great deal of satisfaction working in the communities and helping people achieve more than perhaps they ever imagined, which is what chasing the dream means to me. I think we sometimes plant dreams with people who don't have them. I think community involvement is really an important aspect of.
If I could just share one story with you, and this also related to after the commission decided, me and the commission decided that we were going to start this Chasing the Dream Foundation, Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation. We wasn't making much money. I mean, the foundation was just flooding around, and I was going to card shows, signing little cards and giving the money to the foundation, but we wasn't making much money. And so my wife, who worked with the United Negro College Fund for many years and led the South Atlantic in fundraising, she came to me one day and she said, we ought to have a birthday party for you. I said, fine. And I said, and we go, if you just let me handle it, she said, I can take it over. Just let me handle it. I said, okay. And so she went to Coca-Cola and went to some of the big companies and charged them something like $75,000 to $100,000 for a table of 10. And I had found out about it. I said, we want this to be a success, don't we? She said, just let me handle it. I said, okay. So sure enough, I let her handle it. And this is a true story. The night of the dinner, we made over $1 million in that dinner for Chasing a Dream Foundation. And I had the president of the United States at my dinner Bill Clinton stayed there all night long with me at the same table. So, I felt like this was a blessing. This is part of the blessing, I think, that I felt like, I said, we needed this money very badly. And we made over $1 million that night.
Well, ever since that night, Billy's been in charge of fundraising.
She's been in charge of fundraising. That's right.
Well, it seems like today's ball players with their very high salaries have such an incredible opportunity to do some of the same things you have done. Do you expect this to happen?
I think a lot of them are doing a lot of the things. We just don't hear about it. We hear and we read about certain things that's happening. I think a lot of the players are involved in fundraisers and trying to give back. One in particular I think about often. In fact, a young man reminded me this evening. It was Jeter. Jeter has been just excellent at what he's been doing. And people don't realize that. They hear the bad side about things. And you have other players that's involved in it. So you hear about one player, if he do something bad, then it's all over the news. But you never hear about the good things.
I know you've been honored with a number of honorary degrees. How do you feel about the honorary degree that you got from Notre Dame?
Oh, this was it. I guess I held it so closely I wouldn't. I kept it in. My wife told me, she said, of all the things that I've received, and I received some great things, but I know exactly where that I know exactly where that degree is right now. Nobody can get to it but me. It is under lock and key. Now, it was quite an honor, really, for me to receive honorary doctorate degree from Notre Dame, to come here. And the thing was so, I'm saying something out of school now, the thing that was so impressive about this was the fact that the night before, when you had your pep rally, was the thing that really sent me off on another level, the way the pep rally was run, and so I talked about it everywhere I went. It was something that is very dear to my heart.
Thank you. Well, thank you for answering my questions, and now we'll open it up to the audience and for questions to ask Henry and Frank. Don't be bashful. There's a chance to ask some questions.
Yes, this one right here. Right here.
Go ahead.
You hear about holdouts, lockouts, like the NFL one, recently the NBA one. How do you feel about these, like the subject? Hi. Recently on the news, especially like in the sporting world, you hear about contract disputes, lockouts, etc. Recently, the NFL lockout and the NBA lockout. How do you feel about this topic?
How do I feel about the contracts themselves?
Yes, sir.
Well, let me just put it this way. Owners, there's a lot of money being made in sports today through television. And I don't know, and I say this in all honesty, I don't know of anybody in this building or anywhere else go to the ballpark to watch an owner play. They go there to watch the players play, and the players quite naturally should enjoy the fruits of what that team is bringing. You hate to see people, you hate to see players or anybody else get greeted, but I just believe that that the players deserve everything that they're getting. Really, if the owners are making the money, then players deserve to make as much or more than the owners make, because they are the one out there is playing the game.
Come on down. Got a question? Go ahead.
What is your greatest memory as a baseball player on the baseball field?
What is my greatest moment?
What is your greatest memory?
My greatest memory? was in 1957 when we won the pennant, beat the Yankees in 7 games. That was my greatest memory, you know.
Thank you.
Mr. Aaron, thanks for coming today, by the way. I just want to
Thank
start
you.
by saying that. And you made a reference earlier to Barry Bonds. I was just curious on your...
No, I don't think I mentioned his name. But go ahead.
I was just curious on your opinion and how, as fans or the league, how we should view the records, especially the all-time home run record and the season record specifically. Do you think Roger Maris holds the season record and yourself as the total home run record for a career, or do you think it's Bonds and Bonds? That's just my question. If you don't want to get into that exactly,
No, I'll answer the best I can, you know. Well, first of all, let me just say this. That speaking about Barry Bonds, let me just say this in all honesty. You know, Barry Bonds probably could have hit as many home runs without them being accused of taking any kind of substance abuse, doing something. I think he was just a terrific ball player. I never played with him, but I watched him play, and he was a terrific. He's the only player that I ever seen that could change baseball. Now, I've seen football players being changed, but he was the only one that could probably change. And I think that if he just stayed away from everything, I think he could have done just fine. Now, you said about Roger Maris' record. I think Roger Maris' record deserves to be where it is. I think he broke the record, and I think he deserves to have it, you know.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Aaron. Frank, nice to see you. I guess I was curious, you've spoken about role models in sports and business leaders having a role for affecting change and creating opportunity, but what role do the fans, the shareholders, and us as consumers in general hold in shaping the sports that are being produced, the businesses that are being produced and run?
I get an echo up here.
The question was, what role does the individual, the fans have in the game today as basically
David, would you just rephrase that?
Because
Okay,
I'm getting an echo up here.
I guess the question is turning it back a little bit away from the sports role models and the business leaders and owners to what role do we as fans, consumers, and shareholders in companies play in shaping the product or system that's being created?
I'll take a crack at that one, Henry.
Take a crack at it.
You going to give this one to
Go
me?
ahead, yeah.
Well, you know, David, I think consumers and fans play an enormous role in shaping the way organizations are run. We've often thought about whether or not corporations could do as well as public companies if they made it known that they were engaged in philanthropic or social activities and endeavors. And would shareholders really accept that, or would they demand that a corporation put all of its activities and all of its profits in the hands of their shareholders and not engage in social endeavors and activities? And I'd like to think that whether it be role models or corporate CEO role models, that we could spend time convincing the public that we are doing the kinds of things that are in the best interest of the public or the game. And that's really our obligation, to make the case and to convince them that this is the best thing to do, not to renege on an obligation to do well as a corporate executive, but also to teach the community and the audience that this is part of our obligation. So I think shareholders and consumers and audiences shape a lot of what we do, and I think the dialogue needs to be much richer than it is.
Hi, I'm Dan McMurch. I'm a sophomore here at Mendoza. You've obviously had a really successful career as first an athlete and then a businessman. But I'm really interested in that transition there between athlete and businessman. I'm wondering what were the major advantages, but also what were the major disadvantages of that transition going into business? I mean, obviously you'd have the work ethic going into business, but was it difficult to get people to take you seriously when it came down to cold hard numbers and things like that?
I think I understand. Well, first of all, I like to say that going from baseball to business, number one is that you got to put your heart and soul in it. You know, I went from baseball to the food business, and then from the food business to the automobile business, and I was for 5 years in the automobile business. I woke up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to one of the dealerships to make sure that everything was running all right. And you got to put your heart and soul into it, whatever it is, no matter whether it's automobile, fast food, whatever it may be. You got to make sure that you're there to run your business the way it's supposed to be run. And that's the transition I think that you have to make.
Would you say there were any disadvantages when you started being a businessman?
Is there any disadvantages?
Yes.
I think the disadvantages is that you go in there with the idea of thinking just simply because you've been successful at one that it's going to transcend into the other one. That's not going to happen. I mean, just because you've been successful at being a baseball player, you're not going to transcend and think that you're going to be a great automobile businessman.
I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
We're aware of a number of very successful athletes who failed to make that transition well for a variety of reasons. But I think Hank's point's right. There's no guarantee just because you were a successful athlete that you would be a successful business person. Some of the skill sets are the same, but obviously some of the skill sets are different. And I think partnerships are critical. Whatever it was that Henry didn't know about business, we felt an obligation to teach him.
Yes.
And then whatever he brought, his capacity, his willpower, his charisma, his leadership skills, his persistence and perseverance, those are just things that he brought himself.
And you have to look at it like business is kind of like it is like baseball. You know, you have 9, 10, 12 players. I mean, whoever you are, you know, you just don't come from playing in high school ball to the major leagues and be successful. You go through the minor leagues and you gradually learn the skills of what you want to do. And that's the same thing about business, you know. If you don't know about business, then you have to learn how to take care of your business.
Thank you.
Mr. Aaron, as a baseball fan, it's an honor to have the opportunity to ask you a question, and I thank you. What was the best piece of advice you received throughout your life, and who was the toughest pitcher you faced during your career?
Well, the toughest pitcher, it might have been one or two, but I've taken care of the rest of them. They were good friends of mine. But what was your other question?
What was the best piece of advice you received in your life?
The best piece of advice I ever gotten was from an old catcher by the name of Mickey Owens. I'm sure you probably don't remember him. Well, I remember.
I don't even remember.
Well, Mickey Owens was a catcher that caught with the Dodgers for many years. And I played with him, he was my manager in Puerto Rico. And every afternoon, he would take me in the afternoon, and he would tell me I would hit 10 balls to right field, 10 to left field, then I would stop hitting, then hit all balls to right field. And that was the greatest, he gave me the greatest advice that I've ever had, was to tell me which way and how to hold the bat and which way I should try to hit the ball to all parts of the field.
Thank you.
Mr. Aaron, hello. I was wondering, of all the 755 home runs that you hit, did you ever have one called back because of a disagreement, a fair foul, or maybe spectator interference in the outfield? Did you ever have one called back? And
yes,
also,
I did.
How do you feel about instant replay today? where that is used on occasion to make some of those decisions?
I think instant replay in baseball is good in some instances. For example, the home run, that can be instant replay. But as far as the umpire judgment, I think you got to leave that ball and strikes. I think that's got to be left alone. Yes, I've had one home run taken away from me, and I hit it in St. Louis in Old Sportsman Park. And they said that I hit it because I used the word traveling out of the batter's box. But I was in the batter's box, and it was Craig Simmons was pitching against me. I hit it to right field, and he called me out for being out of the batter's box. But that's the only home run I ever had taken away from me.
Hi, Mr. Aaron. Two quick questions. The first was, at all the hitters in the game today, whether it's Pujols, Teixeira, Adrian Gonzalez, maybe even Jeter, does one stand out to you as the best natural hitter in the game? And the second question, on a bit of a lighter note, I was wondering if you could be a designated hitter on my wiffle ball team next semester.
Second question, want to know if you'd be the designated hitter on his ball team.
Oh,
We got a spot if you'd like it,
I don't
Mr.
think you would. You're reaching at the bottom of the barrel. I haven't picked up a bat in 20 years. Yeah. And what was your other question about Pujols?
Yeah, who do you think's the best hitter in the game today?
Pujols. I think Pujols is a good hitter. I think he's a good hitter, but I don't get a chance to see a lot of the hitters in the American League. I see a lot of hitters in the National League and don't really get a chance to see. Pujols is a very good hitter. He's a very good hitter. The thing that I think that ball players today, it's hard to find ball players, and I'm not saying Pujols or anybody else, to find ball players who can do three things. That's hit with power, run the bases, field, and steal bases. I don't see many ball players stealing many bases nowadays. I see a lot of them might hit with power, and a lot of them do some other things, but not too many of them hit with power and steal bases.
Question.
Hi, Mr. Aaron. I have two quick questions. First, if you could change one thing about baseball today, what would it be? And second, with the recent news about maybe Albert Pujols leaving St. Louis, going to Miami, I was wondering how you feel about players leaving their teams that they've come up with to go for the bigger contract.
Is that where he going to Miami?
That's what there's been in the news recently, that he might be going to Miami.
Pujols. Oh, well. I don't know. I don't know. They just signed Rios, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they just signed Rios. So I don't know. I don't care how many ball players you get on your team or how many you think you have, but if you don't get the right ingredients, you don't get the right mixture of ball players on a club, you're not going to win. That's number one, because it's individuals. Baseball is unlike any other sport. It's not like football. It's not like basketball. Like anything. If you don't have somebody in the clubhouse to know how to communicate with players, you're not going to win. It's an individual sport. When you walk up to the plate, there's nobody up there but you. When you catch a ground ball, nobody but you. Yeah, it's all individual, So in football, in order for you to have a good tailback to run good, you got to have somebody to block for him. That's not in baseball. So I think that just because you go out and sign a lot of ball players doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win a championship. Philadelphia, for an example, went out and got one of the best pitchers in baseball last year, and they wound up looking at the World Series. So I think the St. Louis Cardinals last year demonstrated to most all of us that if you got a club that plays together and know how to win, then you can win a championship. And that's exactly what they did. And they didn't have nearly the payroll as Philadelphia did.
Thank you.
Hi, just one quick question for you. For 162 games in 23 years, how did you keep it going? How did you beat the grind? What was your drive, your motivation?
How did you keep going on 160?
It was tough. When I first got into the big leagues, we played 154 games. And at the end of the year, every year, we used to have to go to a doctor, to get everything back together again. To play baseball every single day, it's a tough sport. I'm sure other sport is too, but baseball played every single day and facing a different pitcher every day, it's probably one of the toughest sports that you can think of.
Yeah, Mr. Aaron, I am a lifelong Milwaukee baseball fan, and I just want to thank you for 1957. As you know, it didn't really work out for us this year, but I have a question for you. You were a 24-time All-Star in the time before diets and weight regimens. How did you maintain for 24 All-Star caliber years and even longer? What was your secret?
Wait, are you from Milwaukee? Okay, good. That's one of my. That's one of.
PBR and sausages?
That's one of my favorite places in Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. We didn't make much money, but we got a lot of things from spick and span. We got all our clothes done free. We got milk, and we got a car. We only made $5,000 a year, so the owners got the rest of it, and they gave us the chips, I guess. But what were your other questions that you said?
How did you keep it going?
I don't know. Really, you have to have some kind of pride in what you're doing. Really. And I've always felt like I played in 23 All-Star. I played in the league 23 years, and I made the All-Star team every year but once. And I felt like that was my goal. That was my goal, is to play in the All-Star game. I felt like, and a lot of players would tell you that, hey, yeah, I don't care whether I play in the All-Star game. I wanted to play there. I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to be part of the guys, And a lot of players say, I don't care whether I play. That's because they didn't make it. They couldn't help themselves. I could help myself. So that's why I made the All-Star team every year, because I wanted to be there. And I went there because the fans voted for me. When the fans didn't vote for me, then my fellow players voted for me.
Last question.
Yeah, I have a question. I wonder if you had any thoughts on why the economic achievement of African Americans has continued to lag the population as a whole and some other ethnic and racial groups in this country.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Repeat the question.
I was wondering if you had any thoughts on why the economic achievement of African Americans has continued to lag the population as a whole and maybe other ethnic and racial groups in this country.
I hope you're talking about baseball now.
No, not baseball. I'm talking about
In general.
achievement.
Oh, in general. Well, let me stick to something I know a little bit about. I wanted to. We're talking about African Americans. We're talking about blacks in baseball.
No, I'm talking about in business, economic achievement.
Well, I'll let Mr. Bellotti
Since you're
talk
involved with
I'll let him talk
franchising
about-
and communities have given opportunities for just, underrepresented groups.
Okay, I'll let him talk about business, and I'll talk about baseball. Is that all right?
Hear from either one of you.
And the reason because we'll be going in a few minutes, and I wanted to just say this, that the one thing that I am very discouraged about is that we don't have blacks in baseball today. There isn't many black players playing today. I don't know of clubs. In fact, I can think of 2 or 3 clubs that probably don't have maybe one black ball player on their team. And that's a disgrace. It's a disgrace because I think that Jackie Robinson stood tall, and myself and Willie and all of us, we played the game the way it's supposed to have been played. And today we don't have many African Americans playing the game the way that I think they should be in the game.
Why do you think that is?
And I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about it. I don't know. To be honest with you, I've talked to the commission about it. We've talked several times about it. We talked to owners about it. I've talked to them about why don't we have scouts? Why don't we have player development? Why don't we have African Americans doing some things? And I'm talking about African Americans. I'm talking about African American ball players. I'm not talking about Dominicans or anybody else. I'm talking about players that live here in this country. I am very much discouraged because we don't have any African Americans doing anything for professional baseball, and it's a shame.
I'd be happy to address the other aspect of it. It's something that Hank and I and many of us have talked about a good deal. I don't know that we know all the reasons why there seems to be a lag in economic achievement. But what I do know is we have made a concerted effort to change that. And so much of the work that we've done has been in recognizing African American achievement, in funding scholarships specifically for African Americans, in trying to recruit African Americans to become owners of enterprises and start supply businesses and be placed on boards of directors and assume responsibilities for automobile dealerships. And I think the only way we change the tide is to continue to try to address the needs that exist. I even have some scholarships here at Notre Dame that I've endowed, and I've endowed them specifically for immigrants or children of immigrants for the purpose of trying to reach out to entities that need more of our assistance. And I think there are those who spend a good deal of time trying to figure out why certain things exist. I think Hank and I have often said we don't have a lot of time here on earth, and so we're going to work to try to change whatever it is that does exist and try to make it into more positive.
Frank and Hank, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
That belongs to her. Thank you.